My name is JohnUdy. I served in the U.S. Army Air Force and the U.S. Air Force. Well, I flew the first pilot on B-17s in World War II. And I started my missions in August 1944 and completed them in January 1945. One of my most memorable missions was one that we flew to Koblenz, Germany on 24 December 1944. That was Christmas Eve. We flew in there. We was in a lot of flak. We noticed the oil coming out of the number 4 engine. I knew we had problems, but we planned on feathering that engine. But it turns out that the oil that was supposed to be saved for the feathering motor didn't happen in that particular engine. So the engine went ahead and run without oil till it broke the crankshaft, and then the prop started spinning freely, and there's some sparks coming out of the engine. We had about 1 minute to get out of the airplane if the engine caught on fire, but it didn't. So we managed to come along all the way from Koblenz back to England, and the prop didn't come off. And this was at about the time the Battle of the Bulge started, when that great big fog come over all England. We managed to find an airport, and we landed, and the prop didn't fall off when we landed either, so we were fortunate that way. And we enjoyed ourselves. The base commander came out and then told us we could go to the officers' club or anywhere, even though we weren't dressed properly. And we ended up going to a all-ranks dance, and they wouldn't come after us from our own base because there was too much fog. They couldn't even drive a truck. So we had a better time there probably than we would have we'd been back at our own base. I was the first pilot, the aircraft commander. I made all the decisions on what happened in the airplane, you know, the main decisions. I had a bombardier and a navigator and 8 gunners, ball turret gunner, top turret gunner, 2 side gunners, and 1 tail gunner. And they were armed with 2 50 caliber machine guns. I flew 35 missions from 1st of August 1944 until 17th of January 1945. My first mission was kind of scary too, because they gave me an experienced co-pilot, but we flew over Koblenz, I think it was. No, not Koblenz, Leipzig, and I got the oil system, hydraulic system all shot out. So we came back, we got back to our base, and they knew I had no brakes, so they said, "They'll stay up till they'll get all the other airplanes down." So they did that, and then when we landed, we landed as close as we could to the end of the runway, and then taxied down. I left the number 3 engines going so I could turn it. I got down to the end and I could see I was going off into a big ditch, so I ground looped the airplane. I've never heard of anybody ground looping a B-17 before or since, but it worked out all right. Nobody was hurt. We had the same crew except on 10 September 1944. Our navigator rode with another crew. We weren't flying that day and they needed a navigator, so they took him. Excuse me, and they flew to Haguenau. And they got shot down. The pilot got killed getting out of the airplane. And McMahon, that was my navigator, he parachuted down. There was a lot of civilians waiting for him when he got on the ground with pitchforks. He thought they were going to kill him, but then the military come and took him on charge. And he spent 9 months in a prison camp over there. But he was all right. I saw him after. Very thin, but he was okay. Lived on black bread and potatoes. That's the only casualty we had on our crew, if you could call it a casualty. I wanted to get me a big ranch, but I was not able to do so because it cost so much money. So I ended up working for the Air Force as a clerk, and then I went on up to be a inventory management specialist at Hill Air Force Base. And I stayed in the Air Force Reserve until I retired out of that. So I had about 37 years service. And I had stayed away from flying Air Force airplanes long enough that they wouldn't let me fly when I got active in the reserve. So I ended up being a logistics officer and a supply officer in that.